Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. Now today we're going to be talking all things three releases. We're going to talk about my book, Three Releases, the short game system, transform your technique and thinking. It's been out for a couple of years and I've been blown away by the comments and the feedback I've had. It's been amazing that I've been able to help so many golfers around the world. And this video really is all about bringing it a little bit to life. I'm going to go through some of my favourite bits in the book, which I think might be able to help you around the greens. And as I mentioned, the title is really quite key. It's transform your technique and thinking. And I think there's a lot of instruction out there, which is great about technique, but not only have I sort of put the three releases into a technique, which I'll come on to and why I think that's useful for you to try and get some real simplicity into your short game. The key part is the thinking, and the ability to think correctly and develop your golfing IQ is something you've heard me talk probably quite a lot about. And it really in the first section I talk about this, it's your technique added to your golfing IQ, multiplied by your practice. You've got to practice well, and that really allows you to become a good short game player. So we're going to go through that. We're going to go through section 1 of the book, which is some technical parts, and then we're going to get into section 2, which is more the mental part, and hopefully give you some bits to get stuck into. So let's start with release 1 and the chip and run shot. So you'll see in the book, the first shot is the chip and run shot, hopefully the most basic shot you should face on a golf course, the shot that you need the most when you're on a fringe fairway lie and you're chipping with a little bit of green to work with. Obviously you can have different amounts, you can have a little green or more green, but that low basic chip and run shot. But just before I get into it, I want to make sure you're clear on a couple of what I call short game foundations, which just come just before the chip and run section. Number one, it's understanding that short game is the total opposite to long game. Like long game, in a nutshell, we have a little bit of weight transfer. You finish like this. Hopefully you finish like that in your full swing. Nice weight transfer. But short game really is about being soft. It's about rotation. We don't want that drive. We're really trying to control the ball speed more than trying to really accelerate it too much. So short game, in a nutshell, is about rotating around that front side, whereas long game for me is much more of a transfer of movement, a lateral movement. So very different games, okay? One is powerful, one is a little bit softer, so that's important to understand. And there's no reason you can't become the best short game player in the world, by the way. It's not a physical act. You'll never be able to drive the ball like Rory, but you might be able to chip like him if you can just put these foundations in place, because it's not that big physical effort that's required to swing a golf club at 120 plus miles an hour. Okay, so really high ambitions for short game. And the second point you need to understand is this concept of the bounce, the soul of the club, because the three releases is really, I came up with it just to kind of get some simplicity into it, because I found that golfers didn't really understand how they could change the ball flight and then adapt it to the lie. So when you want to hit this low flighted shot, the chip and run release 1, it's where the butt of the grip points somewhere near that front hip there, which is using that front leading edge to the front part of the bounce, okay, this part of the club right here. So we're hitting it with a little bit of a forward lean just to get that slightly ball first contact, and then just letting that ball run out. Okay, obviously there's release 2 and 3, which I'll come to in a moment. And you'll see in the book, I am big on fundamentals. I want you to be world class over the ball. I don't think there's any excuse why any of you watching shouldn't be able to set up the ball as well as the best player in the world, because it's a static position, and you'd be amazed when you get your basics correct how everything then wants to chain react. The backswing, the through swing, the release of the club, everything almost becomes an automatic chain reaction of events. So we mustn't set up badly over the ball, because it's just going to create that negative chain reaction. So a couple of things I talk about in the book is setting the pivot line. So what I mean by that is getting the left shoulder there, over the hip, over the knee, into the middle of the foot there, almost through your left ear there for a right-handed golfer. Okay, so your weight is on your lead side, and that creates that ability to get that slightly downward contact on the ball. One of the most common faults I see, and again this is discussed in the book, is this big shoulder tilt. Great if you're hitting a driver, fantastic. You launch off that tee peg, hit that nice high drive. But when you start setting up like this in short game, you're inevitably going to start hitting the ball way behind, and that's one of the most common faults I see. So this ability to set this pivot line and then really have the movement then around it, I think is the easiest way to return the club to the ball. So we're limiting movement and we're just pivoting around that front side. Also, it's important to understand wrist positions for the three releases, and I get heavily into this in the book, but when you want to hit a low flighted shot, it's important to get this angle here of the wrist pretty much dead flat, which then brings you a little bit closer to the ball, and that discourages wrist action, because for a chip and run shot you don't want to get too wristy. And just simply by putting the wrist in this position biomechanically, it makes it difficult for the wrist to hinge. Okay, so very important to make sure that comes nice and flat, and then you come in nice and close to the ball, and with your improved pivot line, you're starting to look like you'll be able to hit a good shot. Just a note on the stance, because how you stand to the ball is important. As I said at the beginning, we're not about creating power in a chip and run shot, it's about getting control. So we don't want to stand as if you're hitting a full shot. So I like to stand with one golf ball between my heels, one club head between the middle of my feet, two club heads there between my toes, and then I've got a really tight structured setup, which again is going to make it harder for me to move too much, particularly now I've got all that weight through that forward side for me. And then the final thing you've got to remember really is just trying to allow your arms to relax. Okay, it's difficult, isn't it, because we're full of tension sometimes when we play golf, but you've got to let your arms hang naturally. If you look at your arms, they will have a slight fold to them, and that's really how they want to sit onto the grip. And that straight away is going to give you so much more feel and spin on the ball and control when you have that light grip pressure as opposed to a very firm grip pressure, which is really one of the main reasons we tend to see the thin and clean contacts. So great basics, really important. Doesn't make it impossible to hit a bad shot, but it makes it harder to hit a bad shot when you set up as well as that. A couple of things in the book that, a couple of drills I go through to really solve the biggest issue in the backswing which is getting underplane this way. So basically the club head here whips underplane. From here, path tends to go too far to the right. Again, the attack angle gets way too shallow. The path goes to the right. You're hitting way before the ball, and it can create all sorts of miss hits. Equally, the player sometimes has to then flip the club to fix the fault. So in the book there, I talk about the left hand only drill, and I love this. I think it's one of the best exercises you can do to feel the perfect swing plane. If you just hold it just in your left hand only, this is for a right-handed golfer, of course, switch it the other way if you're left-handed. The book is out in left-handed, by the way, as well, if that's going to help you, okay, because it's going to just switch everything. But obviously I'm talking about a right-handed golfer here. Hold it in your left hand only and just push it away. Now, I've never seen anyone do this incorrectly. So if you push it away with your left hand only, you will tend to get the shaft as an extension of your arm because you're supporting the weight of the club head through your arm. If I roll the club in, which is what a lot of you will do, it's probably the most common fault I see, the weight of the club is pulling this way against my hand, and I can probably struggle to hold that for much longer than 10 seconds. But I put it back there, I could hold it for 10 minutes. So a really nice exercise that I talk about in the book to really get the right swing plane going back. And to try and get away from this movement where we're trying to help the ball in the air too much and moving around. The other one I like is where you go on the left leg only here, go up onto your right toe, and then you hit some shots from this position. And this is a really nice exercise just to guarantee that you're not moving around too much in the swing. So you're really keeping that weight down. You can hear that strike and that spin, and that's really what we're looking for this shot. We are looking for ball first contact. It's important we're looking for ball first contact on the chip and run. It doesn't have to be. The technique I teach doesn't mean you don't have to be perfect, but that's what we're looking for. And you can see that allows me to repeat the strike pretty much every time as long as I'm delivering that drill there. And the release itself, I get heavily into that because I think it's so important. The reason I came up with the 3 releases, by the way, is just trying to get absolute clarity and simplicity. And I found that when golfers start to understand where the club needs to move through the ball and where it needs to finish, everything then tends to chain react and instinct takes over. And also, I'm a big fan of golfers being able to coach themselves. And if you know where impact and the follow through needs to be, you can coach yourself when you're practicing. Because let's face it, 99% of the time you're on your own at this game, okay? So you've got to understand it and you've got to have some benchmarks and checklists to come back to. So the impact is going to deliver the butt of the grip towards the front hip there. And for the release 1 follow through, you still want it on the hip there. You can see how everything's together. This one could go in. Oh, finally hold on. There we go. But you can see how the butt of the grip's there. And I'd encourage you to hold your finish. It's important to hold your finish for a couple of reasons. Number one, as I just alluded to, you can coach yourself. So if I finish there, as I hit a lovely shot there, hold it. But I know that it came off correctly because my butt of the grip is on my left hip. I've got the club in the hands and chest all connected. If I follow through like that, that would be a release 0. Sometimes you need a release 0, which or maybe I'll save for another video, but you're driving it forward this way with the leading edge. Now if I did that release, that ball would tend to come off a bit like a rocket. So I'm coming in here, you can see how much quicker that ball is there, very, very quick. So if I was still holding my finish and I've missed the green there, and I'd say, okay, well, where should it be? Oh, it should be there. And then I can start to have a practice swing and start to fix it. Equally, there might be a few flippers amongst you. So if you're a flipper and you do that and it goes too high and the butt of the grip's pointing somewhere near this right hip, well, then again, you can coach yourself, well, it should be there. So I think it's very important from a technical perspective and a coaching perspective to be able to hold your finish. But secondly, you've got to look professional at this game. You've got to look good. And I don't like golfers, when I see them, I see a lot of players do this. They'll play the shot and then a hand comes off and they sort of move like this. Doesn't look good. And it doesn't encourage you to feel like you collect the ball. Like your job isn't done until you're holding that finish. And also, a good idea to hold your finish because it will show you the break for the next shot. So you can see that's going that way. So I know now that putt is a little bit right to left. So if you watch your ball to the end, it'll give you a free read on your next one. So there's a few sections out of the book there. Obviously there's much more in there. I go into great detail on how to play that release one shot. And in terms of the IQ side of things, just remember as well, this release one, you can do it with every club in the bag. I used a 56 there because the green is very quick here at Woburn at the moment. So I needed a bit of spin, but equally I could bring my landing spot back a bit and do the same setup and same swing with a 9-iron. And you'll see here how the ball now wants to run. There's very little spin, so it's running, 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 running. Okay, and that's a nice way to work it towards the hole. And then if I wanted to, I can set up exactly the same and just do it with a 7-iron. Now I've got to bring my landing spot right back for a 7-iron because the green is quick and it's going to have very little spin. So I can just nudge it there with a 7 and watch the 7 go. Running, 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 out all the way down there towards the hole. So just understand, release one, chip and run. Do it with every club in the bag, depending on how much you want that ball to run. But hopefully that's given you some reminders. And if you've got the book, delve back into it. I mean, the more you can keep on top of the basics, the better. And we'll get on to release 2 now. So we're into the soft landing shot, my favourite. So when you're in a runoff area and you've got little green to work with and you need that ball to hang in the air with a lot of spin and just stop really softly. So we're trying to slow the ball down here rather than chip and run. We want a little bit of speed because we want it to run out, obviously. So this is about slowing the ball down. And I'll talk about we're on page 30 here into the release 2 chapter. And one of the things I really get into detail about is reading a lie. Like, you have to make sure you understand the lie is appropriate, because if the first shot was a slight pinch into the back of the ball, like a slightly descending ball first contact, this really is a slide. We're looking to really lay the bounce behind the ball and slide the bounce under the ball, which creates a soft flight. So if you've got a lie that would be firmer or down or in a divot or on hard pan, you've got to look at different options. It might be a putter, it might be a hybrid, it might be a chip into the bank with a release 1 with a different lofted club. But assuming you've got that green light lie where there is a little bit of grass under the ball and you feel you can slide under it, then this is how you play the soft landing shot. And you know, some of the things I talk about in this chapter, we get into the left wrist position, so really making sure that we get that wrist looking a little bit lower than we had for the chip and run. So remember, I had you up here for the chip and run shot. The soft landing shot, I want you down this way, so I want a little bit more angle in the wrist there. And why? Because, well, when you set the wrist a bit lower to address, it wants to then set a little bit more in the backswing for free, right? So I'm a big fan of letting the setup dictate the swing. So a little bit lower in the hands there. So a couple of other points just in the setup, as well as that wrist position. The ball position just inside the heel now, a little bit wider in the stance. Flare the front foot out a little bit more. Weight still very much forward. Upper body can slightly relax now because we are bringing that low point just behind the ball. So we don't want to be as stacked left as we were for the chip and run shot, okay? Because we've read the lie and we want to create that softness. The key part really to the setup and playing this shot on the whole is your grip pressure. You've got to make sure you are barely holding it. You have to feel like you have awareness of the club head. The club has to almost swing itself. It's almost letting gravity swing the club head. Now, if I just let the club swing, you see, I'm not putting any force into that, it's swinging itself. And that's essentially how you've got to see this shot. The weight of the club falls down softly. Keep the chest moving, but it's the weight of the club that's falling down. And you've got a tight grip pressure, you just can't do that. The club just won't move. if I'm gripping it really tightly. So one of my favourite drills in the book, which I go through, is the thumbs off drill. So you take the thumbs off the grip altogether, and this would be a great drill for you to do because straight away you will feel the club head. So you're holding it just in your fingers only, thumbs are totally off, and you can start to feel the club swing on its own momentum. So that's the best drill to really feel the natural weight of the club. And then try a few shots doing that. It's not easy, but just feel how softly I can get that off when I take the thumbs off the club head. This shot, by the way, is lightning. It is firm, quick, downhill. I feel like it's downwind a bit as well, so all the factors are going against us. I used my 56 degree there, but you can see how softly that still came off, practicing with the thumbs off. Now, when I actually play this shot, it might look to you like my thumbs are on the grip, but they're not. They are just resting. They are extremely light on the grip, and that's what allows me to just to get that nice rhythm consistently. So be aware of that. I think a lot of golfers have no awareness of grip pressure. So if you can have the awareness of it, I think that will really help you. Couple of parts to the swing itself. The real key here is making sure that when you take this club back, that the club is in a toe up position like this. Okay, so we don't want the left wrist arch. And I talk about this in the book because when the wrist arch is down here, you can see what it does to the club. It takes the loft and the bounce off. So it doesn't make it very friendly then in terms of hitting before the ball when the leading edge is down this way too much. So if you can get the loft and bounce on, there's a bit of a fold with my right elbow, and that allows then the club to swing through and keep that loft on the club. So it is important to make sure you understand that. Okay, so to get the toe up and then you swing through and you can create that really soft shot. Okay, so super soft. It's not landing with any real forward momentum. And it's important to keep the chest moving as well, because another point I mentioned is the fact that you don't want to sort of try and release this club just with the wrists. Okay, that will become a little bit of a scooping action. The club falls with its own weight, and as you start coming down in a downswing, you just support that with your chest. See how my chest has come through, and that allows that ball to come off really softly. So it's almost like you take it back wide. The light grip pressure creates a bit of a hinge. The club falls down, and as it falls down, you just keep your chest moving. Keep moving, even as you're watching the ball, keep it moving. And that is what's going to allow you to hit these soft landing shots. And loft-wise, I'm a big fan of using your second most lofted club. So if you've got a 56, I think that's ideal, but 54, 56, 58 if we've got a compromise. But I think a 60, I mean, considering this is so quick, I could almost label this an emergency. I always joke that a 60 on the back should say emergency use only. This is perhaps an emergency looking at how quick it is. But generally, when you use too much loft, it can be hard to control the speed because the loft is so weak. It's very easy for the ball to slip up the face, and then sometimes you then go the opposite way to kind of drive it to offset that. And I just think a 60 generally for a lot of golfers is a difficult club to use. If you use your second most lofted, you actually learn to play it a little bit softer as well. And Seve never had more than 55 in his career, and I played quite a bit of golf with Ian Woosnam this winter. And when he won the Masters in 1991, believe it or not, he won the Masters with 53 in his bag. That was the most lofted club he had in his bag, and he won the Masters around that golf course. So you don't need as much loft as you think if you can learn to release the club properly. So let's get stuck into release 3 next. Right, so we're on to page 47. The Lob Shot release 3. This really is your position Z shot. Like here, bit of rough, over a bunker to a pin that's only a few yards on. So I've got no green to work with. And the IQ side of things really important again for this shot because this is the maximum release. This is the third release. This is where just after impact, the butt of the grip is back here on my trail hip, my right hip there. Okay, so I'm really using the back part of the bounce now. So if I was off a hard pan light, I 100% wouldn't use this shot. There's some advanced versions of it I can show you, but that's probably for another video. But for a standard release 3 where you're really laying it down, you need some grass under the ball. So out the rough is quite nice. You can do it out most lies in the rough, but you wouldn't try it off hard pan. If you have a lie that's not conducive, let's say for example it's sitting down, I put that down in a bit of a hole there, then I wouldn't play it. I would play the ball further back, a little bit of hinge, play it like a release 1 or so, and kind of take, nearly went in, try and take your medicine and say, right, that might be, it's gone about 12, 15 feet past the pin, that might be as good as I can do. So all my short game coaching comes back to reading the lie, okay? When people ask me how you should play the shot, what release, what angle of attack, the answer is it all depends on the lie. Now in this situation, I've got a green light lie, there is some grass under the ball, so we can attempt the lob shot. So when you start creating a longer swing and a little bit more speed, it's important to have a good platform, a good base. So I like to see a wide stance, almost a driver width stance, front foot now flared out at 45 degrees, left knee here going over the foot, right leg for me kicks in here, and then the upper body slightly tips back. And that keeps it nice and shallow coming in so we can work the club under the ball this way, but the weight is always staying here. That's the important part. People move around way too much for this shot, and that creates the heavy shots and the thin shots. So I like to create real stability with a lower body. The aim is more or less square. You could aim slightly open if you wanted to, which is to the left. For me as a right-hander, and we're into the third wrist position now, super low, so big angle here between the forearm and the wrist, because the lower the hands get, the more they want to set. And I've got a nice picture of when I worked with Charlie Hull in the book where she was playing this exact shot and her hands are right down almost between her knees, and that really allows her to play that shot. And she's superb at this shot, as you've probably seen on the LPGA Tour over the years, so she loves this shot. Now, once you're set up as good as that, you've got a great chance of playing the shot. You've got set up for success. But a couple of things in the swing, really looking now for this wrist to be in its maximum cup, and the club face looks back at my face here. We go nicely up to the top. We're still turning, by the way, and then you come down, you're hitting behind the ball, full release, butter grip on the back hit for me, and then the loft looks back at my face here. All about protecting the loft amounts. This is very similar to a bunker shot, by the way. It just happens to be out of the rough. And when you really release this and you keep turning, it ends up somewhere near this front pocket, and I call it the pocket finish in the book. These days I call it more the holster finish. People seem to like that term a bit more. So release it, put it in the holster, and let's see if we can play this and get it landing like a bag of sugar. So nice and low in the knees, lots of hinge, release, and you can see the height that we get there, and look how quickly that stops. Just overhit it a bit, but it stopped within about 2 feet there of the hole, and I achieved the objective. Went nice and high. If I can just land this a little shorter this time, and I've got a bit of feel. So we're down, look how high that's gone. Go a yard. Oh, 1 more yard and it would have been perfect. This is the downside of playing the lob shot, and this is why I never play it unless I really have to. It can be hard to get the distance control because it is such a long swing. So it does need a little bit of practice. See if we can get this one nice and close. There we go. Look how softly that lands, and just let myself 3 or 4 feet up the hill there. So great shot to have. Hopefully it's a shot you don't need to use much. It means your long game's in pretty bad shape if you need to play this a lot, but it's useful to have. If you can get the ball coming with such a vertical land angle, that's what stops this ball. It's not really through spin, it's from the land angle. Definitely use your most lofted club. I use my 60 there. Great club to have. There's your third release. Let's get into some pitching now. So before we go to the next shot, don't forget to like and subscribe. The more you can do that, the more videos I can make to help you improve your golf. And if you've got 3 releases, thanks very much. If you can kindly leave a review on Amazon, that helps as well. And if you haven't, you can follow the link below in the description, which will take you to Amazon and also Apple Books, where it's available for you to get in paperback, hardback, or in the digital version. And if you want a signed copy, they're available here at Woburn Golf Club. You fancy a trip to Woburn. Right, let's get to the next shot. So hopefully that's helped you get the idea of the 3 releases. And don't forget, on page 60 of the book, there's a nice recap on the differences, the key differences between all of the shots. So that's quite useful because we don't want it to blur into one. That's really why I came up with the 3 releases concept, is it's real clarity between how you hit the 3 different shots, and that provides that in that section of the book. Now, if you go to page 77 now, we're into pitching. Now, pitching is an area of the game that I think a lot of golfers struggle with. It's an awkward 30 to 80 yard distance. And I think a lot of golfers struggle because I don't really know if it's part of long game or short game. Well, as I say in the book, for me, it's very much part of the short game family. That means it is about pivoting around that front side, chest rotates around the legs, lower body's fairly quiet. Generally golfers struggle with pitching because they're moving around too much, way too much from side to side. So I like the left foot to be flared and really feel like your pressure is down through your feet. Feel like you've got roots growing out your feet, strongly into the ground, and then from there, the chest is the engine and the chest then rotates around the legs. So that's really kind of key message the book gets across, okay, is how the chest is working there around the legs. Now, in terms of which release you use, well, it depends on what ball flight you want to play. So I could use a ball position where it's just back of center, a little bit of shaft lean. Very much, I'm always working that rotational movement I just mentioned, but I can do a shorter finish like this, which is a release 1. So you can see that's gone in and it will land and it will sort of run a little bit. Go on then, go in the hole. Okay, so a little bit more divot there because I'm striking more down on it with a little bit more shaft lean. Okay, that's nice if perhaps you've got a bit of green to work with, perhaps into a bit of wind, or you're playing from a little bit of rough where it's sitting down, or a bare lie, because you really want to be getting that strong contact with a little bit of shaft lean, getting that leading edge down into the back of it. So that's good if you want it to run. If you want it to spin a little bit more and perhaps float a little bit softer through the air, you can do more of a release 2. Now, the release 2 green side, I want the club face looking back somewhere near my left shoulder in the follow through, because I want to keep the loft and bounce on. Once you start getting to 65, 70 yards, which we are here, we want the face to rotate over as the club is released. And so it's a number 2 release, but the club face rotates over instead of holding the loft on. And that's useful to try and get the distance control. It might even give you a little bit of draw, which I quite like on these shots. So let's try release 2. So my body action is going to be very similar. Just note that the follow through is going to be slightly different here with a little bit more release to it. So you can see it's a higher shot. See how the follow through has gone higher? And you can see how that ball is just spinning and just nudging its way gently down towards the hole. So the ball speed was softer. Without getting too technical, again, I'll save this for another video. When you're pitching, smash factor is very important. So how quickly the ball comes off in relation to the club head speed. And that last one I played would have been 1.0. So basically the club and ball speed would have been very similar. The release 1 pitch, it might have been about 1.12 or so. So basically the ball speed starts to get a little bit quicker. And it's just having that IQ to understand when you want your ball to go quicker, perhaps a back pin, and when you want your ball to go slower, perhaps more of a front pin. And that's what you've got to look at. Obviously the lie is key. The lie is the most important thing, but assuming the lie is okay, you get that choice. In terms of distance control, you'll see in the book I really talk about my address system. And my address system is called A1, A2, A3, address 1, address 2, address 3. Nothing to do with release 1, 2, 3 at all. It's just a name I gave to it in terms of how you set up to it, because I'm not a great believer in the clock face system. The reason I don't believe too much in the clock face system is I've never really seen many golfers been able to do it consistently. So what I realised, if you change your setup, so I go for an address 1 is 1 club head between the middle of the feet, move the hands down the grip, get my weight on that front side. Because I've gone down the grip, I come in a bit closer. Now if I keep my weight forward here and take a backswing, that is as far back as that arm will go. I cannot get this arm to travel any further. So I hit a clock face position for free from my setup. So I don't have to worry about that. All I've got to worry about is maintaining the correct chest speed to then help me get the correct distance. So that's my address 1. Address 2 is 2 club heads. We go to the middle of the grip, a bit further away because we've gone down the middle of the grip. Still keep the weight left. That then allows me to get to a 9 o'clock position, if the first one was 7:30. 9 o'clock, again, my arm won't travel any further. It physically won't go unless I release my pressure. Then it will go. So that gives me then a number. And then I can go to an A3, which is 3 club heads, nearly at the top now, not quite. Weight forward again, move further away because you've gone up the grip. And now I can start to get to like a 10:30 position. So I get 3 clock face positions without having to worry about stopping at a certain point. I can be totally focused mentally on the shot I want to hit and the speed I need to deliver and the technique with that turn, and not worrying about trying to stop at different points, which I think is very difficult to do, I really do. So that's something you can read more about, but really put that into your practice. And your numbers will be slightly different to other players' numbers. It's just a case of practicing, whether you just put head covers down, pace them out, brilliant. If you've got a launch monitor, great as well. You don't need one to get better, but it can be nice if you've got access to one and start to get the distances, you know, in your mind. So hopefully that helps with pitching. It's an area of the game is so important. If you can practice your wedge play and really become great at one number as well. I mean, if you can, say for example, become fantastic at 60 yards, it's quite easy to work either way. If you've got 70, you know what a 60 feels like, you can add a bit off, and 50, equally, you can take a bit off. So really practice becoming great at one number and just see if that one number fits with perhaps an address to position. Whatever that number is, become very good at that and then work off it, because that's a nice way of feeling the distance. But yeah, don't be afraid of changing ball flight as well. You know, hit higher and lower, you're all good enough to do that if you just maintain those fundamentals. So I hope that makes sense, and now we'll head to the sand. Right, we're in the bunker, page 91. It's actually quite a big chapter, this. There's so much information here because bunkers, I know, are a real problem for a lot of golfers, and I go really into detail on reading the lie because unfortunately there isn't one way to play a bunker shot. You have to adapt to the type of sand and the depth of sand you've got, and that's why you've got to try and educate yourself on being able to read the lie. So when you walk in the bunker, you've got to switch your eyes on to look. I can kind of see that this sand here is soft and crumbly. This is compact, and you've got to really importantly feel with your feet. Like if you can just walk and feel with your feet in the sand, that's really important. Switch your eyes on, switch your feet on. And yeah, I talk about there's three kind of sand types to keep it really simple. It's either compact sand, which is where it's really squashed down, not that much sand there. There is standard sand, which is this type of lie where there's a nice depth, and then there's deep sand where there's lots of sand. It's kind of coming over your shoes. And you know, to keep it really simple, just think about release 2 is really what you want to be using for standard depth of sand, right? So you're working it somewhere near the belt buckle there. Release 3 is when there's lots of sand, because the more sand there is, the more we need that club to really skip through. And when it's compact, you want that leading edge down lower so it doesn't kick so much. That's more like a release 1. So compact lie is 1, standard is 2, deep is 3. Very important you don't mix that up. So standard lie there, fairly soft. Set up nice and wide, left foot flared out. Don't stand way open. This is something I talk about in the book. You know, the old days you kind of stand open, swipe across it. Sand wedges are a lot better now. Bunkers generally are better. Probably understanding is better. And when you're swinging way across it, you just got to hit it so much harder because you're working the sand in the wrong direction. So if you can get nice and square, work the sand towards the target, your distance control is going to get a lot better. So nice and square, nice wide stance, lower body pushes forward this way. Because the sand is soft and I want to be coming in nice and shallow, because there's a decent amount, I reverse my upper body a bit this way. Shaft in line with the back of the ball, the face is opened and then gripped. We are fairly low with the hand, you see, that's why we need to open the club face, because the loft starts aiming left otherwise. And from that position, I've got a great chance of hitting a shot. Really field rooted again. A couple of drills I mentioned in the book, very much about keeping loft and bounce on the club. So as an exercise when you're practicing, put some sand on the club face and see if you can throw that sand over your back shoulder. That means your wrist would be cupped and the loft and bounce is on. And then to check your follow through, you can then throw the sand over this shoulder, and again that loft is looking back at me there. So I'm very much keeping this part of the club face using the shot. Okay, release 2, stroke 3 at the back there, really laying it down. And yeah, keep your chest moving on these. A lot of people stop at impact like this. A lot of players sort of do this sort of thing here, just quit on it. So you really got to make sure you keep moving. I try and make sure as I'm watching the ball go through the air, I'm still moving, and that's what creates that nice spinny flight and what I call putting it in the holster. So you release it, really put it in the holster for your bunker shots if you want to hit the spinners. But yeah, I'll hit one more. Just try and watch my back leg here, because that's the key. Too many people drive too much like a full swing because they know they've got to create too much speed in the bunker. So down here, cup the wrist, make sure you still turn, release it, keep the body turning through the ball, and then we can hit those nice spinny bunker shots. But you can see the right leg's very much kind of on the ground there. I'm not driving off it too hard. But if I change nothing and I had this type of lie, which you can see it's a lot more compact. If I just went in and changed absolutely nothing, see what's happened there. So I've hit way back on it and it's just kicked. So I was too shallow there. So we need to adapt, we need to get steeper. So we do a release 1, but you lean more into it, hinge it early, put the butter grip on the front hip there, shorter finish, and your divot length will get deeper. Basically in the bunker you're either splashing or you're squeezing the sand. So you splash the sand under the ball, which creates a lift and a spin. I can't splash it under here because there's not really much there at all, so I've got to squeeze it under. So I squeeze it by getting steeper. So everything goes this way more, shaft lean. We know that shaft lean takes bounce off. Hinge it early, hit down, it'll come out a bit lower, but we still get a decent result. You can see how the divot's fairly deep. And does that run out fairly close? There you go, still got it fairly close from a lie that you know, was fairly compact. I would use my 60, by the way, for that lie, because you're taking loft and bounce off. You might all start with your most lofted club to begin with, and if there's loads of sand, this is where you've got to really release the club now. So look at it sitting up like that. Very difficult shot. I think this is probably the hardest shot of the lot when there's tons of sand in the bunker. But play the ball forward, drop it back, full release 3. Hit it harder as well when you got lots of sand, and then you can still play shots a little bit like that one. So nothing to be scared of in the bunkers. The biggest skill, as I go through in detail in the book, you have to read the lie. Once you've read the lie, you can then change your angle of attack and release depending on that. And there really is no such thing as a bad lie. Don't be one of those golfers that goes into the bunker and blames the green stuff or blames the sand. You've got to make sure you read the lie, adapt. There is no such thing as a bad lie. And then the book goes into some drills about, you know, how you hit longer bunker shots, and even one example of using a long iron to try and get the feeling of really getting the loft on. But there's loads of stuff in the bunker section, but that's the main sort of focus I want to get across to you here, is just making sure you understand the lie, how you would change that to adapt, and that's the key part of bunker play. So we'll get into a couple of specialist shots now before we get into the mental side. Right, so we don't always get the perfect lie, and the ability to adapt in short game is absolutely key. So if you just have that one setup, it's very difficult then to adapt when you get different situations like I've got here. So in the book there's a chapter on slopes and rough, and then a load of specialist shots for when you can't play that standard shot. So the hybrid chip, the low spinner, that low shot that really spins late, playing from pine needles, you know, where you've really got to trap the ball first. The putt chip, that's a nice shot when you've got to play a little down slope and just check it a lot. The bare lie lob shots, how deep in the air off a bare lie, and the hook chip, one of my favourites, where you kind of draw it. But that's maybe for another day. But this is a ball that's sitting down a bit in the rough and on a very severe downslope. So some of the key points for this type of shot, because I know the downslope is a shot that terrifies a lot of golfers, because if you change nothing, you'll just thin the ball. You'll come in too shallow, you'll hit the slope and then the top of the ball. So this type of lie, sitting down and on a slope, you need to get steeper. And you get steeper by standing wider here, which allows you to put more of your weight on your forward side, and that gets my chest bone then in front of the ball, and make sure the low point is more forward, which is really important off a downslope. So use a bit of loft here. I've got a 56 here. This is incredibly quick. Just going to nudge this at the front and run down. So ball position goes towards the back, the chest goes forward, forward lean. Bit of hinge, because I want the club to come up and down. I don't want the club to go low here, right? So I'm going to go up, down. Any downslope, it's a release 1. Short finish, nudge it out. Very much a hands and arms shot this. You're not going to rotate your chest too much. So I'm forward here, a little hinge. Get the strike, and you see how there we go. We still get a nice strike. Wow, it's quick down there. And yeah, it ran on a little bit, but that's how you get the contact there. So you can see how wide I am. I would never advise standing this wide if you had a level lie, but the lie in the slope has called for me to stand like this. I'm going to land this even shorter. It's so quick. A little bit of a hinge. Pop it down. And there we go, nice and close. So that's just one example of the many specialist shots in the book, but downslopes really key. Just getting yourself more on that front side hinge, release 1. If you're on an upslope, okay, just reverse it. You put the ball forward, it's a shallower. More of a release 2 on an upslope to get the club working with the slopes. It all becomes quite logical once you understand the 3 releases. Let's get into the mental side now and really try and paint the picture about how you get the ball close. So now we've got some technical understanding. It's important about how you understand how to wrap it all together, which is really getting the mind. And I talk about how to actually learn and the stages of competency, which is really important because these top players you see on television, they're not thinking about any of this technical stuff, that they're just swinging and reacting to what they see. But they've of course put the miles under their belt, they've done the technical work, so their competence level is very high. You've got to put your practice in and hopefully just keep building your competency so you equally can then start playing with less swing thoughts. But until you develop that skill, you've got to think about it. You almost earn the right to not think about it by thinking about it to begin with and really getting that technical understanding. So quite a useful chapter on that part of the learning process. But the key page I want you to go to is 131, which is the short game process, where there's 5 steps, 5 logical steps. Number 1, you've got to view the situation. What's in front of you? Now, are you in stroke play or match play? Because that make a decision on terms of what sort of shot you play, how safe or how risky it would be, how far the pin is on, what the wind might be doing, what the green speed and break looks like. So first off, you just take a general view of what's in front of you. Secondly then, most importantly, you check the lie. So for this shot here, I'm on quite a firm lie. So that tells me I can't really go upstairs with too much release. I've got to play somewhat of a lower shot with lean edge down with more of a ball first contact because of the lie. After you've checked the lie, you then got to visualize what sort of landing spot, what sort of trajectory do you need to get to that ball close, okay? Because the lie then kind of dictates how that ball's going to come out. So you've got to start to visualize and paint the picture of the shot required. From there, you can then choose the club you're going to use and choose the shot you're going to play. So which release you're going to use. And then finally, you play the shot and you review the shot. Very important that you review it. What went well? What could you do better next time? And that then creates that nice memory bank for your practice and consolidates what you may have done well as well. So quite an interesting shot here to this pin. It sort of goes downhill, up quite a steep slope, and then goes down. You can see the different shades of green, and that's quite useful to look at sometimes. So it goes light, then it goes darker because the grass is looking more at me because of the slope, and then goes down again. And I think this would be the classic situation where the player would use often too much loft. Like here I've got a 56, I play quite a nice shot, but you can see the spin of the ball and that slope doesn't go well together. Too much spin, then the slope is eating the ball up. So that goes back to that process. You've got to try and predict that might happen before it happens. Don't wait for it to happen and be surprised. So that was always going to happen because I was putting spin into an upslope. So really the shot here is something like a 9-iron, release 1 9-iron. The lie just means I can't release it too much. So a release 1 suits, and I can land it in this front section, and it'll have enough momentum to get up the slope, and then it should just feed down. Okay. Anything stronger lofted, like a 7, would have too much; it would run on too far. Anything a little bit more lofted might have the same problem, the sand wedge chance. So a 9-iron is a good option here, and it's important as well to have a good practice swing. I talk about this in the book. How you use your eyes, how you use to paint the picture. Look at your landing spot, glare at your landing spot, glance at the hole. Most people just look at the hole too much. So we look at the landing spot, we've got the 9-iron, and I'm going to land it just in this front bit. Hope I don't hit that ball. Just round the ball, there we go. So you can see that ball's got up the slope much easier and fed down to a couple of feet from the hole, or even less than that, because I used the right club, because I painted the picture of the shot in my mind first. I didn't want it to spin too much, so I used an appropriate club. And that part of the game, once you got some technique, is huge. And the technique can get you so far, but you have to add in the thinking bit, and that's why the book is called Transform Your Technique and Thinking. You got to think better. It's no good having great technique. That first shot I hit was great technique, but it was poor thinking. The second shot was great technique and great thinking, and that's how you can get it close. So hopefully that's helped you sort of bring the book a little bit more alive for you, and run through some of the key fundamentals all the way through short game, and it's going to really help you this season with your golf. So enjoy your golf, and make sure as well, put in the comments, I'm just starting to write my second book, so it's going to be a short game book again. So if there's anything you want to see in that book, it'd be quite useful just to put in there what you'd like to see, and I shall do my best to include it next time. Okay, enjoy your golf.